The Honourable Member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and as always, it's an honour to be able to stand and represent the people of Battle River Crowfoot, especially when it has to do with such an important issue like that which I asked last week in question period about the common sense Conservative plan to axe the carbon tax on all home heating. See, Madam Speaker, let me take things back to what happened here a number of weeks ago when the Prime Minister, instead of providing leadership and acknowledging that his carbon tax has failed to meet any of its objectives, he decided to carve out a small portion of those who are disproportionately affected, no question, but exempt a few and leaving the rest, 97% of Canadians, to suffer his carbon tax pain. Now, home heating oil and the dynamics associated with that, that's not a new conversation. Madam Speaker, it has been Conservatives that have consistently brought up the realities that so many Canadians, whether it has to do with home heating oil, as that small 3% of Canadians benefit from the carbon tax exemption, whether it has to be with propane, natural gas, and the other carbon-based fuels that heat so many homes across Canada during our cold winters. Yet what we see over the last number of weeks is carbon tax chaos. Liberals admitting that their plan fails, admitting that it drives costs up, and admitting that it has become unaffordable for Canadians. Yet, instead of taking the opportunity to vote in favour of the motion that Conservatives brought forward last week, they continue to divide Canadians for their personal political gain. And it is driving Canadians into energy poverty. Madam Speaker, energy poverty for a country that is so richly blessed with natural resources that no Canadian should have to worry about turning the heat down so that they can save enough so that they can go to the grocery store to afford groceries, Madam Speaker. But yet that is the reality that Prime Minister, those members of the government, and their coalition with the Liberals and the NDP has brought our country to. So Madam Speaker, last week I asked a simple question to the Minister of Rural Affairs. I asked why he would suggest that he hadn't heard about whether or not the carbon tax was impacting Canadians' ability to pay their bills. And I have learned since that question, Madam Speaker, when people have reached out, including from that minister's own constituency, saying we have shared the concerns, we have shared the pain with him, yet he refuses to respond, refuses to acknowledge, and as is the case with so many Liberals across from that party and their coalition partners in the NDP. In fact, you see, Madam Speaker, the Liberal minister from Edmonton saying that having his let them eat cake moment, saying that it doesn't concern him. You can't make this stuff up, Madam Speaker. The Liberal minister from Edmonton said that he's not concerned at all, I believe was his exact quote, about the costs that crippling carbon tax is placing upon his constituents and Albertans. You have the Liberal member from Calgary who has consistently ran offense for that Prime Minister's failed policies in the city of Calgary. You have a host of other rural Liberal members of Parliament. And in fact, what's interesting, Madam Speaker, is that you have some areas of the country that have been traditionally safe Liberal seats that are now in open revolt against their own Liberal members of Parliament because they are not able to afford the necessities because of this carbon tax pain that is being inflicted upon them by that Prime Minister and his Liberal leftist ideology and coalition partners in the NDP. You see in the constituency of Sault Ste. Marie, Nickel Belt, Thunder Bay, Rainy River, Thunder Bay, Superior North, Sudbury, St. Boniface, St. Vital. Madam Speaker, you see time and time again that there are Liberals that refuse to acknowledge the reality.
Parliamentary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the member from Battle River Crowfoot. Thank you. If he thinks defending the country from the perils of climate change is left-leaning ideology, then he sees the world through a different lens than I do. Our government understands how important this issue is. Our government understands the impact climate change is having in our country. You cannot turn on the news without watching the devastating impact this has had on every city, every rural community, every province in this country. And until everybody in this House acknowledges that and endorses the fact that something has to be done about it, we're going to be having these conversations that just go round and round and round. We're standing here on this side of the House, Madam Speaker, defending Canadians. The measures that were taken last week are another example of that. Home heating oil is the most expensive source of heat in this country. In my province of Ontario, I want to talk about the price of the carbon pricing. Over 80% of the people in my province benefit financially from the carbon pricing mechanism. Take another look. If this new program was adopted by all of the provinces, including his and including my own, that number would go from 80% to a higher number. That's what we're striving to do. The heat pump incentive, and I'm asking my own premier in the province of Ontario to please get on board with this program. It will help people in the rural parts of Ontario. Some of the ridings he just mentioned, in Thunder Bay, where I was born, in Sudbury, Timmins, these are the areas where this can benefit Canadians in making this transition, so that number goes from 80% to 90% to 100%. If they don't want to take this seriously, I don't know what else we can do, but we're going to take it seriously. We have taken it seriously, and we're going to continue to do that on this side of the House, and we're going to keep pushing forward with the measures and making sure, because we're standing for all Canadians on this issue, not just certain parts of the country as perhaps some other members are doing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and certainly 1 minute is not enough time to respond to the what was quite a bit of rhetoric coming from that member, but let me just start by laying a foundation here. That member suggests that Conservatives don't understand the realities that our country is facing. Well, Madam Speaker, I'm the fifth generation on a family farm, so that member, if he wants to talk about the realities of climate, that member can come and visit, because I can tell him for 5 generations we've figured out how to make it work in the special areas in Alberta. When it comes to them lecturing oil patch workers, lecturing energy workers, lecturing those who are on the precipice of ensuring that we can have a secure, reliable energy system, while those Liberals try to put my constituents out of work, it's my constituents that actually have the solutions to ensure that we have a green and reliable energy future, which includes both traditional oil and gas and new and clean tech. Madam Speaker, but let me finish by saying this. It is time for common sense to come back to the conversation, because those Liberals have lost it and Canadians are paying the price and they can't afford to pay their...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
1 minute is definitely not enough to respond to that rhetoric, Madam Speaker. You know, my mother used to say common sense isn't that common. I give you Exhibit A. Look, this government is doing everything it can to fight climate change. We're standing up for people in my community, and we're standing up for people in his community, for that 5 generations of farmers that he's talking about. They are exactly the ones we are trying to protect. And the sooner they realize that, the better off we're all going to be. Thank you, Madam Speaker.